Hi there, I'm Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide, and in this video I'm going to help you understand the big picture of fluency and also, if you struggle to speak, what exactly you should be doing to become a more confident, fluent English speaker. Well, in this video I'd like to do a couple of things. So number one, I'm going to explain what I call the English Fluency Profile and talk about what fluency is as well. And we're going to talk about the difference between natives and learners, or most people who fall into these two categories. And then we'll talk about what this means and then what you can do to improve the system for you specifically. Now, I know this kind of looks a little bit technical. Hopefully it's not too difficult to understand, but basically the idea of fluency is that it's really a collection of different skills or habits that you have. So it's not the knowledge, and this we can really prove this very easily because there are so many learners who know a lot of information but actually can't communicate fluently. So they know what they want to say, but maybe for some reason or another, maybe they're too shy or they worry about their pronunciation or making mistakes or something like that, so they can't express themselves. So just to go over very quickly, these things are, starting with the top up here, we have just really the ability to communicate with natives. So the English that you might learn in a classroom is really quite different from what's spoken on the streets. So can you meet natives? Can you have conversations with them? Can you continue conversations with them? Next, we have conversational speech. So that's your ability to understand and use conversational speech. These are things like slang and idioms, phrasal verbs. Next, we have your ability to use grammar. Then we have your listening ability and kind of general fluency skills. These are things like just being able to communicate automatically without having to think and translate in your head before you speak. Next, we have pronunciation, and finally, we have confidence up here. So really, all of these different things are coming together to create a whole system which allows you to communicate without thinking. And the ones up here really will just kind of contrast the native speaker versus the non-native speaker, working outwards from the beginning. Usually the English fluency profile, if we were to talk about maybe a baby, it'd be something like this, where we're just starting out and we have a fairly low level in all of these things. But myself or any adult native speaker who can communicate just fine, as they develop and become better at maybe feeling more confident, or they're able to have more conversations with people, they improve their vocabulary, their use of grammar. All of these things increase until this whole thing is completely filled. It's kind of hard to do that, but basically this entire thing is completely filled when you're a fluent conversational speaker. Now, this is also a little bit different because maybe if you're just thinking about passing tests, you don't need to have all of these skills, but this is for the people who want to communicate fluently. So the English fluency profile of a native speaker is someone who has all of these things filled in completely. Now, this isn't going to be the best picture of that, but the point is that it's all filled in because they have all of these skills developed to a high degree, really to the maximum degree they can be. Now, the difference here, we're going to look at what a non-native speaker, most learners look like. And if we just look, for example, at some of these, maybe listening is, pretty good. We're just looking at like an adult native speaker, or excuse me, a non-native speaker here. So maybe their listening is pretty good. Maybe their understanding of grammar is okay. We'll just put that maybe here. And again, these are just general things. We don't have to think about, 72% or something like that. But the general idea is that it's not filled completely. And even more than that is these things are filled to a different degree for a non-native learner. So we might have something like the ability to use conversational speech might be very, very low. So this might be a person who understands a lot of textbook English, but they don't really understand so much about being able to communicate well using regular English that would be spoken on the streets. Now, the also ability to communicate with natives might also be incredibly low. Maybe they have no one around them they can practice with, or even if there are, they're very nervous about approaching these people and they don't know how to communicate with them. And also confidence might be very low as well. Next, pronunciation, maybe it's okay. Let's just say this person has, maybe slightly below average pronunciation. Maybe they worry about their accent or something like that. And in general, their fluency is really very low. So if you look at the difference between this, not only do we have different levels for each of these things, often because people are learning in a classroom, their listening is quite good, but their speaking skills are not very well developed. So this is where we get number 2 here, the contrast between the two. So essentially, there are 2 different ways of learning English. You have the kind of second language learning way of learning the language, where you're really only studying a language to pass a test. There's very little practice with speaking, and you don't really learn a lot of the conversational vocabulary or develop all of the habits that you need to express yourself. So again, this is different from a native speaker who's really developing the whole system as one thing. And just so you understand this, each of these parts affects the other. And this is really, I'm going to talk about if this is you down here, and again, it doesn't have to look exactly like this. Maybe your grammar is better than your pronunciation, or maybe you have great pronunciation, but you don't know very many conversational words. It doesn't really matter. But the point to understand about all this is that number 3, what this means, that when you're communicating, really we look at your fluency level is actually the lowest level that the weakest habit you have is. So it's actually your weakest habit that determines your total level of fluency. So we can even have maybe a really strong listening ability here, but if your maybe ability to actually communicate in a conversation is really low, then this level here is what really determines your total level of fluency. So it's a funny thing that even though you may have these skills, your actual ability to communicate looks more like this. Now, this is a really interesting idea because it shows you that most people, they kind of want to work on something that they're already good at. So people tend to work on the things they're already good at. You know, students are already good at listening, so they want to watch more videos or something like that and just develop their listening more. But this isn't actually improving their overall fluency because they're still stuck down here at the level of their weakest habit. Now, I really want to make this point clear because it's very important. If you don't improve your weakest habit, then it doesn't matter if you improve your listening to 100%. Because if I can understand everyone, but I'm too scared to speak, or I just really can't communicate in a fluent way, so I have to think in my head and translate all the time, then I'm going to be stuck in conversations. So what this means is that if you work on developing your weakest habit, then this is what actually expands your ability for all these things to improve. And once you do that, like maybe my confidence over here, I learn how to develop that a little bit more. So now I feel a bit more confident. That also improves my fluency. It improves my pronunciation because I want to get out and speak more. So this is one complete system. And instead of trying to learn just one of these things right here, the important thing to do, the way to actually get fluent, especially if you are not, like a native speaker already, is to focus on your weakest habit. So that's the most important thing I want you to understand from this. Remember that fluency is a collection of habits, and if you just try to improve one of them, especially if it's something you're already good at, you're not going to notice any improvement in your overall fluency. And again, the reason is because you're not focused on the thing that's going to give you the most improvement, and that's your weakest habit. Does that make sense? So hopefully this does. Again, the idea here really is just to remember that fluency it's not the vocabulary that you know. So you could maybe know 10,000 English words, but that doesn't matter if you actually can't communicate. And this is a way of judging or checking your fluency level, even if you don't, have this exact. Again, it doesn't matter about if it's, 22% or 23%. This is really something more that you feel. So when you're in a conversation like, I know this vocabulary, but I feel too nervous about speaking. So if you feel that, then you have a pretty good idea which of the habits you should be working on. So it might be confidence for you, or it might be your pronunciation. Whatever the thing that is stopping you from reaching this level here, don't work on the thing that you're already good at. Work on the thing that you're struggling the most with, because number one, it's going to be the easiest thing to improve. It's like if you're a student and you go from a grade F to a grade D, it's really just a tiny amount of work to improve, a whole grade level. But if you're already at an A up here, trying to get to an A+, that's a lot of work for not really a big benefit that you would notice. So remember, think about this idea. The second part here is that each of these things is connected. So number Number one, again, because you're going to get a lot more improvement if you focus on the weakest habit. And then number two, because your weakest habit is what controls your actual total value of fluency, or your total ability to communicate, because it's kind of like the weakest chain in the link, or the weakest link in the chain. And this just means, like, if you have a chain like this, the strength of the total chain is really the strength of just this weakest one here. So if this chain link is really weak, then the whole thing breaks. It doesn't matter that this other chain link here is incredibly strong. Does this make sense? So when you understand what your weakest habit is, you improve this one and it automatically improves all the others. And then it stimulates your idea or your desire to go out and improve and to practice and speak more. So once you raise this one up, then you find the next one that's like a little bit lower and raise that one up too. And they continue to keep working out. And that's how you become fluent. Now, just to make this point, like, I want to kind of draw it in a different way just to make sure it's easier to understand. This is kind of like a pipe, just a really simple diagram. If you can imagine your ability to communicate here, this total area here, this is like the potential you have, and this is what you actually do. So if you have like a really good potential to speak here, then this kind of opening here is what allows you to express all of this, and so you become, or you speak really well. So this is what a native is over here. But the problem with the non-native, for most people who are learning the language, again, because they're stuck here by their weakest habit, this is what's constricting them down here. So they actually have the potential to become really great speakers, just like you. If you're watching this right now and you're really not a very good speaker, or you're not very confident, or you're worried about your pronunciation, whatever that thing is, you have the potential to become a fantastic speaker. You really do. But you're just stuck here, and that's why your output, the actual ability to communicate that you have, is very weak. Because again, you're stuck here by your weakest habit. It's the weakest link in the chain, and that's why you need to make this chain link stronger so that you make the whole thing stronger. Understand? So it's all one complete system, and once you learn how to improve each one of these things, especially focusing on your weakest habit, that's really the skill to, or the secret to becoming fluent much, much faster. Does that make sense? Well, if you have enjoyed this, you can click on the link in the upper right of this video, because I have a free personalized fluency guide that I'd like to share with you if you've not downloaded that already. And I have one guide for each of these. So it covers all of these, no matter what your particular problem is. Just answer 5 quick questions and I can show you exactly what to do for your particular situation, so you can start seeing more improvement and really improvement that others will notice as well in your fluency today. So click on the link in the upper right-hand corner of this video, or in the link in the description below this video. If you'd like to download your free guide, you can do that after just answering a few questions, just to tell me which one of these things is the thing that you're struggling with the most. If I can help you fix this, I know you're going to see a lot of improvement in your fluency. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.